Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the American Scouser TV Fantasy Premier League Show. We come to you as we wrap up another awkward and weird double game week. As usual, they never cease to amaze me. I always build them up, they knock me down, and for some reason, I still come back and play and plan my entire next few weeks around them. I will learn eventually. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I had a pretty decent week, better than the average week, better than your week, but not better than Kelly's week.
Yeah, and that's all that really matters. And you were just slightly better than me. And if I make a couple subs properly, I crush your score.
Oh yeah, and if I change everything, I do much better too.
I'm not sure if it was changing everything. I think it's just actually subbing a player or two in, and probably not just going against my own gut. But nonetheless, we both win in our. Actually, no, one of us won in our head-to-head league. That was all just for fun. But we're going to get to that. But before we do, we'll give a selfish plug here for the American Scouser Discord channel. We will go ahead and post an invite into the chat a little later. Please jump in, check it out. We have new people coming in every day. Whether or not you want to get involved with the website or you just want to come in and have some great banter for all different varieties of ways regarding Liverpool Football Club. So we'll post that in the chat momentarily. And before that, let's just start here like we always do, looking at our league. You sent a new graphic this week, which I thought was interesting. Why don't you talk us through what you're looking at here and what you like about the live statistics that you're seeing about our American Scouser Cup?
Yeah, the thing I like about this, and this is taken off that same live FPL website that we've been using recently. This updates, first off, especially during matches in the middle of the week when we do the show, the site isn't updated enough because it can't handle like a couple thousand people going on the website at once. So the nice thing about this live FPL thing is it's able to actually show you the real live scores as they stand now. They give you the game week score, their overall score, if they use the chip, who their captain was, and what their transfers were. So I think it's a really interesting look to see what the likes of Pep and Guns and Nunez did without having to go into their team and then scrolling back through last week, see what they did the week before, and so on. And so we saw that Pep didn't do any transfers. He rolled all the transfers he had, so he must have set himself up. Or just kidding. He used a free hit. That's what it – see, that's the great thing about this is you just have to look at it and you'll understand. So he used a free hit and got 129 for it, which is pretty impressive. I mean, he definitely picked all the right guys. But Guns and Nunez just happened to triple captain Holland the same that I did. And it looked like he made a couple changes. Andreas to Rashford, which turned out to be good, and Ake to Akanji, which I honestly haven't checked if that was a net positive or not. But overall, it's just I like being able to see what players did and what the results of that were.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. I thought it was a really cool kind of layout. I like how it shows you the transfers that they made in one screen, if they made multiple moves, if they did free hits, who they captained, who they vice captained, and then also kind of their game week ranks, their hits. So you get everything in one central place. I really think this is great. I'm going to start paying more attention to it. I've started using the live EPL site during match weeks because I really like the graphic you send in for the pod every week.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that more. I do find that it just makes me even more maniacal about the numbers while I'm watching the footy. Yeah. And that kind of bothers me a little because I start looking at these things like actively rooting against because I realize like with effective ownership how guys are hurting me. And, you know, I all weekend long I was like, I really think I should have captained Mo. I think I should have captained Mo. And he slightly outscores Holland. But it actually would have hurt me more because of all the people who triple captained him. So it's just like a crazy thing that I would have made the right decision to captain a player who scored more points, and it would have done worse for me in the overall standings because of how the numbers work. So really interesting stuff. Great job for both Guns and Nunez and for Pep. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out down the stretch. You know, only 8 points separating them, overall. So we are down to we're down to the nitty gritty, as they like to say. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see. Where we are also coming down to the nitty gritty is it the head-to-head American Scouts League. So there is a playoff format here, folks. So there's only, a regular season crown, but we are Americans, so we celebrate regular seasons on top of playoffs. So we may hang a banner here in the Gallivan household if Kelly can find a way to get to the top after Mr. Green Arrow, my co-host, had been leading the charge all year long.
It's such a lead. Such a lead.
So what do you think? Was it your overall play of looking at the head-to-head? Was it just mismanagement there with your captaincies for those 4 or 5 weeks where you're trying to make big moves in the standings? Like, what do you think actually kind of undid it for you here in the head-to-head league when it comes to the win-loss record?
Yeah, I think it was just I got pretty comfortable with the gap, so to speak, and I thought I could take some chances. And it turned out that, Kelly is someone who is always playing the game right and caught up to me. Unlike any other, I didn't believe anyone else would be able to. I thought I had a good enough lead. But, yeah, those were those 3 to 4 weeks where I had those rough captain choices. And then that one freak loss to VJ when everything was pretty much like players didn't play, teams didn't play at all. And VJ had kind of his team from the beginning that he had the right captain. And I think that was the week that the average score was like 34. And I was around that. And then he had like 50 something. So,
well, he had Mo.
Yeah, that was the week. Yeah. So it's just one of those unfortunate circumstances where I got lucky in the beginning of the season playing some people because it'll balance out throughout the year, right? Like in the beginning of the year, I played a few people and didn't score very high, but the person I was playing didn't score high either. Whereas if I had played maybe 4 other people in the league, I would have easily lost. So I think it has slowly balanced out throughout the year. It just kind of sucks that I have to now be Arsenal of this year for real. So it is what it is.
Well, I mean, you do have the playoffs. You have a chance.
And Kelly could lose to next week. That's the last regular season week. So we'll see what happens next week.
That is true, but she did pip you now in the overall standings in overall score. So at this point, you'd have to win and make up your gap of the difference. So you have to also outscore her next week.
Yeah.
And I don't know if your team is set up to do that. But she had an amazing week. I mean, it was really, really good.
Yeah.
Obviously, she bench boosted, but you can bench boost and then you can just do it on a week where you don't really get that much. I mean, she even had Andreas go down, which I thought was, I'm just looking at her side right now. She had Andreas go down and only played the one match, which was really hurt. But she got the assist in Botman. She blanked with Trippier and Matoma. Lost her clean sheet with Shaw and the yellow card late today and bonus points.
Yeah.
But did have McAllister, so she picked up those points, plus bonus points with Steele. I think the real key for her was her moves, making the transfers that she did, bringing in Steele and bringing in Solanke, and then them going for 30 or for 23 points on her bench. I think when you bench boost, and you do 29 on the bench, that's a good week.
Yeah.
That's, so I give her a lot of credit. She set herself up well for that. I told you all along, she knew she wasn't moving up anywhere in the big rankings. So she felt like the best situation for her was to actually go ahead and kind of attack getting to the top and trying to beat you out. I tried to tell her that we had playoffs and she could save these chips, but she really thought that this was the right week to do it. And with the way her team was set up, it absolutely was. It would have been silly not to bench boost because she would have left so many points on the bench because you're not going to sit Matoma and you're not going to probably sit Trippier either, even with just the one match. So really good stuff. I had a late comeback today against Paul.
Yeah.
Looked like I was going to lose. I'd been trailing the entire match. He triple captain Holland. I did not have a chip to use. We'll look at my side later. Subs would have been a alteration of subs would have helped my score a little bit. By a little bit, I mean a lot of it. But either way, I think when we look at this, we're getting to that tail end of the season. This is really the money time. This is really when it gets tough. This is a non-updated league table, but we will see when this league table updates. 2 and 3 will flip-flop. But I think what's interesting here and to point out is I believe that when this updates, 8 and 9 will flip-flop as well. Because both Chris Strain and Timuchin won, but Timuchin, I believe, with the margin of his victory, will have surpassed Chris in the overall score, which should catapult him up a spot, which I think will qualify him with 1 week to go for the playoffs. So we do have a little bit to play for here with the seedings, of course, and what order we'll all be in and where we'll be when it all shakes out. But I do think that we'll have an interesting one as we'll have our final spot up for grabs on the last match of the year. So that should be fun and will be interesting to see how that shakes out. As we always do, we quickly look at the team of the week. Would have been pretty crazy to have 167 points without a captain. Imagine if you had that side and you triple captain Holland.
Crazy.
You might be in the top 500,000.
Too much credit there. I don't think I would crack the top 750 still.
I think you probably would with that haul, but still.
Close.
But obviously the Ake move looks like it was good because it puts him into the top team of the week. Steele, literally, along with the Brighton players, Webster, Estupiñán, and Gross. Souček with goals, Odegaard with a couple, and Lamina. Salah with a great day, Welbeck with a double match week, and of course Holland is Holland. Anything out here jump out at you other than maybe Lerma?
I mean,
and Souček probably.
Yeah, I was gonna say Souček to an extent. If given Brighton blasting 6 past Wolves, it just happened to be whoever was playing for Brighton that day. If they didn't rotate and they had the likes of Matoma and McAllister in March, I mean, maybe we swap Gross and Welbeck with Matoma and McAllister or something if they play that game against Wolves. But other than that, I think everything is kind of what was expected for me specifically. Maybe I didn't necessarily maybe see Odegaard haul as much in one single game compared to the double game weeks that the others are going up against. But so I think that's kind of where I would put the line there.
Yeah, you may rate Frank Lampard's ability to set up a defense better than mine. So I saw I think that the kick guy could have went on the pitch and scored for Arsenal if he really wanted to. Chelsea is just such a shambles. I think the only thing, other than the fact that it knocked everybody who had Arsenal defenders down, I thought that the part of the whole match that was really the most disappointing was Chelsea actually scoring from open play on their own, because it was just becoming so much fun to just see the memes and poking fun at the fact that they hadn't scored. And I was thinking maybe they might go the rest of the season. I've seen 4 or 5 different scenarios where, and it takes a lot of craziness, but they don't pick up any more points and they actually get relegated on point differential. It would be the happiest and funniest moment because the way that it works out, it's actually Everton, Southampton, and Chelsea all go down, and Everton and Chelsea are on 39 points. It's outstanding.
It'd be amazing.
The greatest.
It'd be amazing.
It would just be the most amazing thing. But it's not going to happen.
I did say last week that I thought Arsenal was going to bounce back and put 3 or 4 past Chelsea. And I did transfer out Saka. So I at the end didn't really believe that, even though I said it on the pod. But yeah, it's we'll get into it, but I'm glad that I did go off Saka because he was the one player that didn't really perform that well in that match.
And it's funny, that's why I started Martinelli over both Kanate and Solanke, and it didn't work out for either. But that was why I did it, because I also thought they were going to trash him. And I thought that coming off of those performances, Arteta was going to go with his top side and wasn't going to rotate, and then ended up rotating, to my chagrin. So, as we usually do, we'll look at players coming in. It's been a short period of time since the match week ended, but as you know, you can make transfers, if you're like me, moronically, early and often sometimes. First one doesn't surprise me, both on form and the fact that people love a knee-jerk reaction. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Anything else? Thank you. Anything else here jumping out at you specifically, maybe on the defensive side, either in Estupiñán or Stones?
Not necessarily, because City has Leeds at home, Everton away. Those are two really great fixtures defensively. And then Brighton has Everton at home, but then they have that tough double. Right? They have two doubles in a row, actually. So they've got Arsenal and Newcastle as the first one, and then Southampton and City as the second one. So I don't know if it's as much belief in the clean sheets over the next 3 weeks as much as it is, hey, this guy scored 15 points. Let's get him in. Maybe get him in for a price rise. Like you said, it's early, so 89,000 people. Those could be the only 89,000 people that transfer him in by the beginning of the next match week. So who knows? But other than that, everything else is pretty much makes sense. Wilson scored more goals in April than Alan Shearer ever did in 1 month for Newcastle, which is crazy to think about. So yeah, it all makes sense.
And I'd still argue, as well as Wilson scored goals in the month of April, that he wasn't the best striker at the club in the month of April.
The Isak, yeah.
You know, and that to me, I think, is what is really interesting. And that's, you know, I currently am on Isak. I'm not going to move Isak out to bring in Wilson. It's just a lateral transfer because I think they're going to play 60-30 probably the rest of the way, especially in the week where they have the double. Eddie Howe doesn't like to play players lots of minutes back to back. I think the Estupiñán one it's just down to principle of what three Brighton assets are you going to have? Because I think with a match against Everton and then back-to-back doubles, the fact he offers you something going forward, the fact that Brighton, I mean, as they showed today, they can go up against the top side and not concede. I mean, they were the better footballing side today for 90 minutes. I mean, United had a few chances, you know, good opportunities, and could have won the match. Also could have drawn if they hadn't given up and conceded the crazy penalty. You know, but Brighton is just, they're playing at a level right now where they're, you know, they're going to play Manchester City in match week 37 in that midweek right before the end of the season. And I think it's going to be the squeaky bum match. If Arsenal can put the pressure on City all the way to the end, it'll be the Brighton match that they may have to play football against the side who's not afraid to, like, defend them, play with them, attack them. Yeah. They're just so confident. De Zerbi's doing an amazing, amazing job. So I just think with the Estupiñán, it comes down to what three you're putting in, because there's 4 weeks left, you know, and they have 6 matches. You can't beat those numbers. I think honestly, you have to own 3 Brighton assets starting this week.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe this is where people are just making the decision. You know, it's 2 midfielders. It's 2 midfielders or Steele. I think it's also Estupiñán is by far the best defensive option. You could say Dunk, but I think he offers too much with the assist ratios. And then lastly, of course, you know, both Inisco, Welbeck, and even Undav are all kind of shouting for cheap options. And the crazy part is within a week or two, Ferguson might be playing.
Yeah. They have fantastic depth. It's like they pretty much, De Zerbi just plugs people in wherever he wants to, and it just continues working. It's fantastic.
Yeah, the program it got better after Potter was there, and it's unfair to like say, oh, Potter left and they got better. Potter also went there and made them a really good footballing side that almost got relegated twice and was relegated once. So
pretty much all the guys there were there when he just got there while Potter was there. So
right, he was building this, and De Zerbi just basically showed what a manager on a little higher level could do. So basically, Chelsea supporters, if you had hired De Zerbi, look how much better life would be. So let's look at the players going out. A little more interesting, I think, on this slide. We'll take Andreas out of it purely because we know he's out for the season.
Yep.
I have to admit, unless you're free hitting or wild carding, I think it's a wasted transfer and a terrible move. You're going to have a player on your team that doesn't play. He's already dirt cheap. What do you do with a transfer at 4.4? Yeah. Just he's your third bench player.
Yeah.
I guess if you have your bench boost still to come, or your free hitting, or your wild carding, it makes sense. But it just to me seems like a wasted transfer. Even if you have $2 million in the bank, and you tell me you're going to Martinelli or whatever, I tell you could take that $2 million and instead of going up to Solanke, getting up to Watkins, or instead of getting to Watkins, getting to whatever $9 million striker you want. There's got to be moves there other than dropping Andreas. So Watkins, Saka, Tony, De Bruyne, what do you think are the driving factors leading to most of these exits? Matchups, form?
Just recent form, because Watkins, of course, as soon as I brought him in, started blanking every single match because that is tradition. So he went from getting a return from game week 27 all the way to 31, and then now for the last 3 weeks just getting the 90 minutes. And so similarly with Saka, there hasn't been any returns there. De Bruyne, don't really know what's going to happen. Sometimes, depending on his fitness, that's all going to depend on how he's going to play. And so most of it is going to be form right now, because I think this is the part of the season where, matchups are important, but form is even more important towards the end of the season, because you're just going to get the best of the best or the worst of the worst from whoever there is right now. And I think, especially if you are looking at someone from moving off of Watkins, if you're looking, maybe you wanted Jota or Nunez still for some reason, you're moving back onto them. Or you see you're going down from Watkins to a Brighton forward, saving a couple million and moving up elsewhere. I could see that be a move as well. So I think most of it is just going to be form, and a little to do with matchups, because Villa doesn't have the best matchups coming in, and Arsenal has a decent, not so easy run in as well. So it makes sense from that point of view.
So as we start to take a look at your team from last week, great week, obviously, big score, 117 points, get the green arrow, nice move up. What moves did you make going in here? What were your transfers?
I had 2 free transfers, and I took out Saka for Cody Gakpo, and because I really wanted to go up to Mo, but there was no way of making that happen without taking a -4. And looking back on it, I should have taken the -4. But that's, hindsight's 2020. It is what it is. And so I felt like having a Liverpool mid was going to be good this week, and I was kind of, I felt good about Gakpo getting 9 points. The other move I was debating, I went off of Kepa, and I thought to myself, do I take the chance on the steal double, or you know what? I feel so much more comfortable with Ederson. Ederson's going to have 2 clean sheets. Everything's going to be fine. And then, as we all know, we saw what happened. Things were not fine. But the shitty thing is, had I gone to steal and gotten those 14 extra points, I still would have lost to Kelly. So either way, it's just like, damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. Obviously, I'm happy with the week. That's probably the highest I've scored in a long time.
Well, to go to steal, you would have had to move off of McAllister and Matoma, because you already have 3 Brighton.
Right. So what it was. That's what it was. So I had to take the extra 4. Right. No, you're right. That actually made it a lot more difficult to go to steal. I totally forgot. I didn't even – it felt so long ago. I forgot what I was doing. But yeah, so other than that, most points I've scored in a long time. I like seeing all those little stars there. Kind of just goes to nice little differentials in a way. And of course, I triple captain Holland. I was between triple captaining and bench boosting. In the end, I decided to triple captain, and it worked out because I would have scored less points had I bench boosted instead. So, it wouldn't have been too much, but it would have been a little bit of a difference.
And what is your plan going into 35? If you've thought about it or looked at anything yet?
Yeah, so with 35, I think as it stands right now, I'm gonna sit put. The only thing I might shift is possibly transferring Rico Henry out, and maybe looking to get another bench fodder kind of thing, because I think I don't necessarily everyone that I have in here I'm happy to play next week. So I know I was looking at it earlier this week. I think I'm gonna stay put for now, and then keep the 2 transfers going into next week, and then use my bench boost then, I think is the plan.
So use your bench boost in 36.
Possible 36 or more likely 37 when United also has the double. But I still have to kind of just decide which of those weeks I really want to attack and feel better about. But it's going to be bench boost between those two.
Are you primarily, because I know this is my plan, I'm not going to lie. I'm not, we'll look at my team momentarily. I don't believe I'm going to make, we'll go to my team now. I don't believe that I am going to actually make any transfers as far as this week goes. Like you, I'm honestly so comfortable with this team that I have guys on my bench that I'm frustrated that I can't play next week. I basically wish I could bench boost next week, and I don't even have doubles. That's how much I like my matchups on the side. But I'm going to attack it. I'll figure out how to rotate my players, who's going to start and kind of who I'll have in what order on my bench. But I'm going to go at it with this team here, stay with this side. That'll give me 2 free transfers in 36. I'm not sure if I'll make 2 in 36 because I'm set up pretty well with 3 Brighton and 3 Newcastle already. But I've basically committed to the fact that between now and 37, whether I'm definitely going to make at least the 3 free transfers and possibly a 4th for a -4. But I am only transferring in Newcastle, Brighton, or United players. Because I'm just going to play the fixture numbers down the stretch. I think when it's this time of the season, that's when coaches and managers play players twice in a week. If this is about Newcastle getting their first Champions League in, 30 years, or European football in a long, long time, there's no question to me that they're going to, start Isak and Wilson together, that they're going to each play 90 minutes if they have to. Same with United. It's going to be Rashford. It's going to be Shaw. It's going to be their top scoring players. And when it comes to City, I'm a little more nervous. That's where I have to decide, will it just be Ederson and Holland? If I knew De Bruyne was out, I think I would absolutely just go Holland and Alvarez and build my team around those 2 strikers, because I think you're seeing what the future of City is, and I think it's Alvarez as the 10, to be honest. I really do. I think what they looked as good without Kevin De Bruyne this weekend as they ever have with him, in my opinion. I mean,
it's so annoying.
It is annoying. It's what they do. They just replace great players with better players somehow, and then sell the great player for a lot of money, and then we all complain because they buy more great players with the money that they profit off their other great players. It's amazing what happens when you sell players for profits. You get to buy players for profits. Shocking. Different podcast. But other than Matoma, obviously Martinelli was just a mistake. Not playing either Konate. Well, honestly, not playing anyone on my bench over Martinelli was a mistake. I mean, the Matoma thing is a tough one because he played really good over 2 matches. He only had the cameo in the 6-0, and by then they had taken their foot off the gas. Probably was hard done to not get a penalty awarded to him earlier in the match today. That would have given him an assist for a McAllister goal, probably. And really should have finished a couple opportunities that he had today against United. He had some really great chances and looks, but he just creates so many opportunities for himself and teammates. It's hard to imagine dropping him to the bench, though I might have to think about it even against Everton this week because I like some of the matchups even better. But I think with my side here, I'm just really balanced. I feel comfortable. I really like Kepa, even though Chelsea's been struggling. They don't have a tough run in, and all in all, they're giving up when they concede. They're giving up 1-2 goals a match. They're not giving up a ton of goals. He gets save points. He's not that expensive. Though I have thought about maybe just using the extra cash in my bank and just kind of plugging down on either like an Ederson or an Allison and just going for it, trying to find the keeper who's going to keep the most clean sheets. But then I look at Steele and say to myself, what am I doing? He's cost $4 million and he's got 6 matches in 4 weeks.
Yeah, six opportunities to give up several goals too, though, potentially. I mean, I don't think I'm not going to see it happen with Brighton, but yeah, I can't see you making that transfer because of the fantasy player that you are. I don't think you want to waste that transfer on a keeper.
Well, and it means I have to move out. If I make a transfer at this point with a keeper, I then have to go ahead and move off of one of my Brighton assets. Yeah. So now I'm probably going to have to drop either. It would probably be a Stupion because I'd be nervous about the double back there. Unless I'm putting one on the bench. And again, it's not like I need the extra cash at this point. So, I have the side pretty well built. At this point, I think the only players that move, it's probably mixtures of Konate, Martinelli, maybe Solanke. But like I said, I'm not going to move off my Brighton Newcastle assets. I'm only going to add United assets probably. I didn't go get Trent at the highest point of his form of the season in fantasy to drop him now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've fit in these expensive assets somehow while still having a pretty balanced team. So I feel really good about it, actually. It was a little too late for me coming on this year, but I feel good. I feel like I can still maybe get inside the top 250,000. I'd love to sneak my way into the top, underneath 200,000. But I think it's just going to take big scores. I think the move this week is to hold on to your transfers for me and make sure and prepare for the last couple weeks while preparing yourself and getting ready, obviously for that final, survival Sunday. So before we wrap up, as we always do, or sometimes do, chat a little bit, about a different strategy. So for someone like you who's been playing all year in points, but is also in the head-to-head leagues,
one of them now.
What does this look like for you now that we're coming into this where we have one more week of regular play, and then we are going to go head-to-head with a single elimination tournament? Will you start considering what you're doing against trying to win that and the bragging rights of our supporters group and our Discord channel and our banter? Will you stay true to the overall score as your number one kind of driving factor? Because it's a different game when you're going head to head and who you're playing.
Yeah.
And maybe have an idea of what they're doing with their side that you're about to match up against.
And it could be, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, if you set up your team in a position to score a lot of points, you're going to take care of both of those things. Like, I don't want to sit there and try to fret if I need to hit this certain amount to be able to beat this person. I want to sit there and go, I want to hit 90 points this week. I'm going to hit 90 points this week. And if I do, I'm going to beat anyone that I play against. So I think that's sort of how I'm looking at it is I would like to win at least something from this year. Given what went down with our league. So I will attack the playoffs, but not any differently than I would have if I was still a little bit higher in the points, because unless I'm fighting for like top 1,000 overall, I'm just going to make a couple of weird moves to try and make up ground in some weird way, or try to take try to beat someone in a head-to-head that they might not be going a certain direction. So I'll try and go for that differential and see what happens there.
I like it. Yeah, I was just wondering. I've always just played it the same. I mean, I don't really pay that much of attention to it. Obviously, I think if it comes down to it and you know that you and this person have very similar teams or something along those lines, you just kind of, that's one of those scenarios where maybe you look at your sides and you're like, I know that team, he's got a Captain Holland. So even though I like this other guy as captain, I'm going to Captain Holland because that just offsets that. Or, you try to make those couple transfers thinking that it'll all be the same. And then you find out that they had their free hit all along and you weren't paying attention and they just hammer you with a completely different side. It'll be interesting, I think, when the playoffs start for us in match week 36. First two rounds, the quarterfinals and semifinals have double match weeks, which is always interesting. Goes into kind of the championship Sunday is Survival Sunday, which is always a tough fantasy day because you don't know what teams are on the beach. Who's Tottenham going to smash and Harry Kane going to score 5 goals against? I'm looking at you, Lester, or whoever it is that's already, down and their supporters are having a funeral at the stadium and they can't handle the emotions of it all. So it'll be really, really interesting to see. It adds to the drama. It adds to even more excitement. So we'll get you out of here on this. If you were to call out one player that you feel everyone out there right now should be looking at and thinking about picking up from a fantasy perspective, a hot, new, young, whatever it is player, who is it that you would be focusing your attention right now? Like, who's number one on your watch list if you could get him into your side?
I mean, he's not necessarily new or hot, but Mo Salah would be nice to have right now if I had the money for it, given what he's been doing the last couple of weeks. But I think that's a good question. I think if you're not on a Newcastle forward, getting onto one of Wilson or Isak just to be part of those shares, I think would the direction I would go, which I could see myself moving off of Watkins to one of those guys if I felt like I wanted to. But similarly, if you moved off Darwin, if you went Darwin to Isak, you wouldn't. Well, I'm sorry. If you went from a sub to a starter scoring goals, you wouldn't be able to get up to Mo. No, I have no money in the bank right now. I am at 0. Yeah.
Wow.
It's rough. It's a rough life out here.
You got a lot of money.
I don't know where all my money went, dude. I was so confused. I thought I could easily get to Mo last week when I was doing my transfers, and it turned out I had no grasp of my team and what was going on. So here I am with 0 money in the bank and nothing to go for. Who would you be? Who would you be telling everyone to go for?
So for a couple weeks ago, I think I was ahead of this train. I think there was a period there right before he got hot and started scoring that I was thinking that Jack Grealish was the best player on City outside of Holland, especially when Foden was still out and hurt. So I think at one point that would have been like a player on a really good team that I think is like sneakily there for you to have and kind of score some points with. I do like the Newcastle shout, whether it be Isak or Wilson. I also think like if you had gotten on the Murphy train early and had him be your Andreas, midfielder, like people rode Almiron all year long. I think the other one that just always flies under everything and just doesn't really ever get talked about is just how consistent. Sorry, caught there in my throat. how consistent guys at the bottom of the table that are struggling don't score. And what I mean by that is like I look at teams that still have Brendan Johnson. I look at teams that still have Everton attackers. Like at this point, you really shouldn't have a single player from any of the teams at the bottom of the table. The Leeds, the Forests, and honestly, it even goes for Leicester City. So I think some of my things would be like when you see these polls and these lists that say like you should have Madison or Barnes is a great differential for this week. Like I think the answer there is no. Because I think you saw in James Madison's penalty the difference from playing matches in May that are for 8th to 5th place and matches that are going to take your team from 19th to 16th. And I just think the pressure that's on at the bottom of the table. So, on one hand, I'm saying, I'd avoid these players, and I really would. And I think at this point is why I think you really stack your team with guys from teams that still have big things to play for.
Yep.
And I think we've both been saying it all show, right? We're talking about Brightons and Newcastles and Liverpools and even Villas and, to a lesser extent, the Arsenals. And I think that's really where your focus has to be at this point. And maybe you can litter in some fodder elsewhere. But I don't know that getting guys like that are either on the beach or ultimately already worried about playing next year in the championship are actually going to be guys that are going to be the ones who are fit and firing with 4 weeks to go in the campaign. I could be totally wrong, but it just, when you watch the matches, you can almost see the difference in the football played when a team has something real to play for or, what they're really playing for is their life.
Right.
So, all right. So, as always, please give us a subscribe on the YouTube channel, like, share, invite a friend. Next time, leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you, have ideas, see screenshots of your teams, questions. But as always, for myself and Matoush, thank you for viewing. Thank you for listening, hanging out. Until next Thursday, we hope that all your transfers work. Enjoy the matches this weekend. We will be back next week. On Thursday night, we will follow up and prepare for another big double game week and recap how the final last week of our regular season went. Will he get back to the top, folks? That is the real question.
Nope. Spoiler alert.
All right, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday.